Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for songs that might be a little too similar to be written off as a coincidence. Number 50, Australian Crawl Unpublished Critics versus Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child O' Mine. Some songs are instantly identifiable, and not just because of an instantly iconic opening riff. When Sweet Child O' Mine was released in 1988, the band was met with acclaim from fans and critics alike. But decades later, it gained attention for having a resemblance to a smaller group's piece. The comparison with Unpublished Critics by Australian Crawl spread around the internet, with people noting similar chords and melodies. Guns N' Roses bass player Duff McKagan commented on the overlap, but insisted that he had not heard the Aussie song before. The answer apparently satisfied the lead singer of Australian Crawl, who later quipped that the issue wasn't worth a legal battle. Number 49, Article Sound System Live Your Life versus Dua Lipa Levitating.
If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy and I can take you for a ride.
Getting smacked with 2 copyright claims for the same song has to hurt. Levitating helped bring Dua Lipa's pop career to new heights, but that didn't come without some controversy. While one was dismissed after just a few months, the other went on for over a year. Reggae group Article Sound System pointed out the alleged parallels found in the chorus of their song Live Your Life and Levitating.
All day, all night, party to sunrise now.
Things seemed to get murkier when they asserted that the pop star's team had been aware of their song beforehand. However, the suit was eventually dropped.
I need you all night. Come on, dance with me. I'm levitating.
Number 48, Glenn Miller in the Mood versus the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. Navigating copyright laws can get tricky, especially when it comes to older works. The Beatles learned this firsthand after they released the anthemic All You Need Is Love.
There's nothing you can do that can't be done. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung.
Their musical quotation of the jazz standard In the Mood would lead to a dispute between studios and publishers. George Martin's orchestral arrangement for All You Need Is Love included portions of a variety of songs, and the final version includes a few of the Beatles' previous hits thanks to some in-studio improvisation.
Love is all you need. Love is all.
However, Martin apparently didn't check whether In the Mood was under copyright, which eventually led to the studio paying royalties to Glenn Miller's publisher.
All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need.
Number 47, Pat Boone, Speedy Gonzalez versus Elton John, Crocodile Rock.
You better come home, Speedy Gonzales, away from Tannery Road.
Who knew a song about a cartoon mouse could cause this much drama? Popularized by Pat Boone in 1962, Speedy Gonzalez quickly climbed the charts, easily hitting the top 10 and remaining a force for over 10 weeks.
Speedy Gonzales, why don't you come home?
It was such a well-loved piece that when Elton John released a track with a familiar sound, comparisons were soon drawn between the two. The team behind Speedy ended up going after John and Bernie Taupin about 2 years after Crocodile Rock was released, arguing that they had lifted some of the chords for their own recording. The two parties reportedly opted to settle out rather than continue the process. Number 46, 3LW Players Gon' Play versus Taylor Swift, Shake It Off.
I say I'm too late. Got nothing in my brain.
This was proof that not all decisions made in a court of law are final. Taylor Swift led off her triumphant debut into pure pop with the lead single Shake It Off. She incorporated a variety of popular phrases, and while they ended up making for a catchy tune, their originality was questioned.
'Cause the players gonna play, and the haters gonna hate, baby.
The writers behind 3LW's Players Gon' Play sued her in 2017, alleging that she plagiarized their lyrics.
Players, they gon' play, and haters, they gon'
The suit was tossed out, but then the decision was reversed. The legal back and forth went on for several more years before being dropped in 2022 with no verdict. It was an anticlimactic end to such a long fight, leaving the final decision to the listeners.
I shake it off, I shake it off, I shake it off, I shake it off.
Number 45, Sammy Chakri and Ross O'Donoghue, Oh Why, versus Ed Sheeran, Shape of You. While some accusations of stolen art are cut and dry, others might be more of a reach.
The club isn't the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go.
Ed Sheeran is no stranger to them, and has had his work questioned several times. In 2018, he was taken to trial by Sammy Chakri and Ross O'Donoghue, who felt that his hit Shape of You borrowed elements from their own track Oh Why. Legal action ensued. In 2022, the judge ended up siding with Sheeran, saying that the slight likeness wasn't enough to prove he had deliberately or subconsciously copied them. Although he won the case, it reportedly prevented Sheeran from receiving millions in royalties. As a result, the British performer was quoted calling out the proliferation of, quote, baseless claims.
I'm in love with the shape of you.
Number 44, Tony Basil Mickey versus Avril Lavigne, Girlfriend. When a beat is this recognizable, it's impossible to try and pass it off as your own. Tony Basil's Mickey made waves in the 1980s, with the beat helping it maintain a presence within pop culture decades after it was released. When Avril Lavigne dropped Girlfriend over 25 years later, many noticed that the hook chant was pretty similar to the 80s bop. Several critics argued that she had ripped off the original, all while sounding more immature than her older counterpart. Others posited that it could be considered a tribute to Basil. While the Canadian entertainer managed to skate by without being served, you may never be able to listen to Girlfriend the same way again. Number 43, Jake Holmes' Dazed and Confused versus Led Zeppelin Dazed and Confused. Creativity can strike anywhere, including while seeing other musicians perform.
I'm dazed and confused. Is it stay, is it go?
Jake Holmes recorded Dazed and Confused in 1967, but it didn't remain his for very long. The Yardbirds reworked the number for their own discography. Guitarist Jimmy Page then decided to take it once again and re-record it with his new group, Led Zeppelin.
You hurt and abused, telling all of your lies.
It ended up becoming one of their own signature songs, apparently much to the chagrin of the original writer. Holmes reportedly attempted to resolve the issue in the 1980s, but never received a reply. He ended up filing a lawsuit around 30 years later. It was later settled, with his name added to the piece, citing him as the official inspiration. Number 42, Bob Dylan, Idiot Wind versus Hootie and the Blowfish, Only Wanna Be With You. When do references cross the line into plagiarism?
I've been looking for a girl like you.
This is a question that Hootie and the Blowfish were left to reckon with after they caught some heat for quoting Bob Dylan in their smash hit.
Said I shot a man named Green, took his wife to Italy.
In Only Wanna Be With You, several references are made to the prolific songwriter, including a number of lines from his track Idiot Wind.
They say I shot a man named Gray and took his wife to Italy.
Band frontman Darius Rucker reportedly said that Dylan's camp had knowledge of the lyrics, but that didn't protect them from being slapped with a lawsuit. According to sources, Dylan got $350,000 to settle the case.
Ain't Bobby so cool? I only wanna be with you.
Number 41, Paramore, Misery Business versus Olivia Rodrigo, Good For You. While Olivia Rodrigo's debut studio album was undoubtedly successful, it also wasn't without its fair share of controversy.
Good for you, I guess that you've been working on yourself. I guess the therapist I found for you should really help.
Sour was widely praised, but multiple tracks were called out for bearing resemblance to other works. One example is when she was required to give recognition to several artists after interpolating Taylor Swift's Cruel Summer on Deja Vu.
Strawberry ice cream in Malibu. Don't act like we didn't do that shit too.
Her woes didn't end there.
Well, good for you, you look happy and healthy. Not me, if you ever cared to ask.
Many noticed that the chorus of her pop-punk-inspired single Good For You sounded quite close to Paramore's Misery Business, which had come out over a decade earlier. This reportedly led to them receiving acknowledgement and up to over $1 million in royalties. Number 40. David Bowie, Boys Keep Swinging vs. Blur, Middle of the Road. In an homage to David Bowie, the Britpop band Blur took a few cues from the legend's work on the Lodger album. Their single Middle of the Road bears a close resemblance to Bowie's song Boys Keep Swinging.
Boys keep swinging.
Most of the music revolves around the same chord progression. The basic musical idea originated from Bowie and producer Brian Eno's experiments in the late 1970s, which also included the similar-sounding Fantastic Voyage. Damon Albarn and his bandmates boldly saluted the music icons, and eventually had to give them credit. Following some legal efforts, the songwriting team for this track received an adjustment.
Boys always work it out.
Number 39. The Raisins, Healthy vs. Lizzo, Truth Hurts. Lizzo has seen tremendous success with hits like Truth Hurts. The empowering anthem allows the artist to showcase her independence in iconic lines.
I just took a DNA test, turns out I'm 100% that bitch.
But it resulted in an accusation that the singer lifted a key line from Twitter, along with separate assertions regarding proper songwriting credit. Justin and Jeremiah Raisin claimed that their demo Healthy was the basis for this track. The brothers said that they worked with the artist on the idea, which allegedly shares lyrical and musical similarities with her eventual single.
Their attorney writing, "We look forward to sharing the sound recordings, videos, photographs, and musicology that 100% prove that collaboration."
Lawyers denied this connection, but credit was later given to Mina Lioness for inventing the 100% that bitch mantra in a tweet. Lizzo also sued the Raisins for apparently harassing her about their authorship claims.
True hurts needed something more exciting.
Number 38. Yaysayer, Sunrise vs. The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar, Pray For Me. Collaborating for the soundtrack of Black Panther, The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar recorded the song Pray For Me.
I'm always ready for a war again.
The track prompted the band Yaysayer to sue for copyright infringement, claiming that the work borrows from their single Sunrise. The rock group says that there's a comparable vocal part in both efforts. The act even argued that the accused artists replicated aspects of the original recording for their own benefit, pushing back against the allegations. The Weeknd and Lamar asserted their innocence. 2 years after the newer composition's release, Yaysayer ended the lawsuit and left the songwriters with full credit.
I live by my own. I live by my own.
Number 37. Tracy Chapman, Baby Can I Hold You vs. Nicki Minaj featuring Nas, Sorry. For her track Sorry, Nicki Minaj wanted to use a sample of Tracy Chapman's classic 1988 song Baby Can I Hold You.
Sorry. It's all that you can say.
Minaj went ahead with the production despite Chapman denying her request.
Sorry is all that you can say.
When Minaj's 2018 effort was leaked, the original singer-songwriter sued in an attempt to stop the new composition from being released. A judge ultimately decided that Minaj's work could be considered fair use. The entire lawsuit came to a close in 2021, with the rapper paying $450,000 to Chapman. After all of that hassle, Sorry mostly remains famous for this copyright dispute. Number 36. Keith Jarrett, Long As You Know You're Living Yours vs. Steely Dan, Gaucho. Jazz rock legends Steely Dan are known for their epic compositions and complex structures, but that doesn't mean they aren't also inspired by their contemporaries.
When I say, boy, we can't miss.
Keith Jarrett's Long As You Know You're Living Yours is all over their track Gaucho, and singer Donald Fagen later mentioned being inspired by it. Jarrett naturally filed suit after hearing similar musical elements in the 1980 release. Along with a familiar tempo, they each implement a signature saxophone line. Both songs are undoubtedly cut from the same cloth in a way that even casual listeners could decipher. Following a legal battle, the plaintiff was awarded a co-writing credit. Number 35. Public Enemy, Security of the First World versus Madonna, Justify My Love. If you happen to be a fan of Madonna's Justify My Love, you may or may not be aware of the Public Enemy song Security of the First World.
I wanna kiss you in Paris.
The introductory section of the pop singer's hit sounds almost identical to the rap group's instrumental. The hip-hop collective argued that the 1990 single sampled their beat, but the songwriter Lenny Kravitz never admitted to consciously taking it. Producer Hank Shockley said that his drum pattern was taken from him without permission and considered a lawsuit. A counter-argument said that it was just inspired by an earlier James Brown work, but Shockley asserted that it was original. The battle ultimately never became more than a few back-and-forth remarks in the press.
To justify love.
Number 34, Florgon, We Run Things versus Miley Cyrus, We Can't Stop. The early 2010s saw the return of Miley Cyrus as a pop star, releasing the hugely successful single We Can't Stop. Some of the lyrics involve a line that singer Florgon recognized. With a few basic differences, both tracks share the same central idea. The Jamaican singer felt that it was too close to his own song We Run Things, and followed up with a massive lawsuit. He initially hoped to receive damages in the neighborhood of $300 million. After Cyrus agreed to settle, the artist, also known as Michael May, won an unknown amount of money. Number 33, Bobby Caldwell, Carry On versus Lil Nas X, Carry On. Lil Nas X is one of the boldest and most provocative artists of his era. He's also been embroiled in multiple cases of copyright infringement, with this one being lesser known than the attention surrounding his hit Old Town Road. The single Carry On borrows more than just a title from Bobby Caldwell's song of the same name. Once the publishers of the older singer found out about it, they promptly served the rapper with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. The younger performer allegedly didn't ask permission before releasing the track on his mixtape Nazarati. As of mid-2023, the pending suit still hadn't been resolved.
Not the same as before, I changed a bit.
Number 32, Radiohead, Creep versus Lana Del Rey, Get Free. Radiohead was sued for plagiarizing part of their breakthrough hit Creep.
When you were here before, couldn't look you in the eye.
But that didn't stop their publishers from going after Lana Del Rey for chord structure similarities between Creep and Get Free.
Undoubtedly.
The publishers stated that they were merely asking for the writers of Creep to be added as co-authors. The singer said she made an offer to them for a percentage of the royalties, but the rock act allegedly attempted to take away all of it for themselves. The suit was later settled, according to the Get Free performer. While some of these events are still unclear, there hasn't been any subsequent change to the credits for Del Rey's track.
I don't belong here.
Number 31, Pat Benatar, Shadows of the Night versus Rascal Flatts, No Rains. After songwriter D.L. Byron heard the Rascal Flatts track No Rains, he was convinced that the group had taken a cue from one of his biggest works. The author of Pat Benatar's Shadows of the Night felt that the songs were too similar to be a coincidence. Byron then sued the country group, feeling that the trio reinterpreted the chorus for their own tune. Representatives for one of the bandmates released a statement that denied any alleged plagiarism of the 1984 hit. Listeners will likely find themselves siding with the Benatar collaborator after hearing the introduction of the more recent release. All these years later, it seems that there hasn't yet been a proper end to the lawsuit. Number 30, Brian Pringle, Take a Dive versus Black Eyed Peas, I Got a Feeling. Unknown songwriter Brian Pringle alleged that a version of his track Take a Dive was used for the Black Eyed Peas smash I Got a Feeling.
I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night.
A According to the musician, he sent a copy to Interscope Records, and somehow the songwriters got a hold of it. It's never been proven whether or not it ever got into the hands of producer David Guetta or any of the band members. Regardless of the questionable accusations, the plaintiff tried to make a case that revolved around the repetitive guitar riff. Pringle's work features a similar sound that he hoped would be surefire evidence in court. Unfortunately for his case, there wasn't sufficient evidence to move forward, and the claim was dismissed. Number 29, John Lee Hooker Boogie Chillin' vs. ZZ Top LaGrange. When you're dealing with the blues, it's not uncommon to find patterns between songs. This was the case with ZZ Top's classic single LaGrange.
Rumors spreading round, United Texas town.
The publisher for John Lee Hooker's track Boogie Chillin' asserted that the two were especially close, filing a lawsuit against the band as a result. It's undeniable that the blues legend inspired countless artists. In the case of ZZ Top, a case could be argued that they subconsciously used Hooker's riff. The reality of the situation was that the music was considered public domain for its origins. Unable to convince the proper authorities, the suit was officially dropped in 1995. Number 28, Killin' Joke, 80s vs. Nirvana, Come As You Are. Following the release of their album Nevermind, Nirvana shot to fame and even received scrutiny for their songs. Such was the case for their single Come As You Are. British group Killing Joke thought the grunge band ripped off their guitar riff, leading to the threat of legal action. There was definitely a potential case to be argued with the help of musicologists. After the death of Kurt Cobain, the possible suit did not go forward, with the plaintiffs looking to move on with their lives. All that remains is the knowledge that Cobain himself knew the two pieces were perhaps too similar. Number 27, the Isley Brothers' Love Is a Wonderful Thing vs. Michael Bolton Love Is a Wonderful Thing. Singer Michael Bolton was known to revisit soul classics and invent a few of his own.
Birds fly, but don't think twice. Simply spread their wings.
For his track Love Is a Wonderful Thing, the performer claimed to have no knowledge of the song of the same name by the Isley Brothers. The R&B group sued on the basis of plagiarism for more than just the title.
Love is a wonderful thing. Love is a wonderful thing.
What followed was an almost decade-long event that included failed appeals on the part of Bolton. Ultimately, the courts ruled in favor of the brothers and awarded them millions in royalties. It was considered one of the most significant payouts in music copyright history. Number 26, Georgie Benjor Taj Mahal vs. Rod Stewart Do You Think I'm Sexy? When Rod Stewart went disco in the late 1970s, he apparently did so with the help of Georgie Benjor's music. The latter's song Taj Mahal provided the basis for the unforgettable Do You Think I'm Sexy? Benjor sued the British rocker, noting that the melody in the chorus is eerily close to the one in his own track. Rather than letting it become a drawn-out case, the former Faces frontman did the honorable thing. Stewart admitted that he had heard the other tune before and subconsciously swiped it for his own number. The profits for the pop tune were donated to UNICEF, giving this lawsuit one of the happier endings in music history. Number 25, Gordon Lightfoot If You Could Read My Mind vs. Whitney Houston The Greatest Love of All. One of Canada's greatest songwriters, Gordon Lightfoot's legacy stretches much further than some people might think.
If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell.
His DNA may or may not have inspired the producer Michael Masser on his composition The Greatest Love of All. Famously covered by Whitney Houston, the track features a vocal melody that's fairly close to the one in If You Could Read My Mind. Lightfoot sued Masser for allegedly borrowing several bars of his 1970 song. The folk hero eventually gave up on the lawsuit, later realizing that Houston was being unfairly lumped into a dispute that wasn't her fault.
The feeling's gone and I just can't get it back.
Number 24, Def Leppard Pour Some Sugar on Me versus One Direction Midnight Memories. While the groups seem like a world away, Def Leppard and One Direction have one alleged connection. The former single Pour Some Sugar on Me could be a possible inspiration for the pop act's Midnight Memories. Many audiences found the choruses to have more than a passing resemblance, with the hard rock band considering a lawsuit. The writers of the 1987 classic decided to stop short of any official legal proceedings. Guitarist Vivian Campbell felt that the songs were both indebted to the blues, adding that there wasn't much reason to pursue such a common concept. The younger quintet's embrace of rock sounds ended up being a success in its own right.
Never say no, just do it, do it, do it, do it.
Number 23, The Police, Every Breath You Take versus Puff Daddy and Faith Evans, I'll Be Missing You. If you want to sample a song by Sting, you should probably ask him first.
Every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching you.
P. Diddy, then known as Puff Daddy, didn't get permission and paid the price for it. There's no question that the Bad Boy producer took the main guitar part from The Police wholesale.
Seems like yesterday we used to rock the show. I laced the track, you locked the flow.
Used in a touching tribute to Biggie Smalls, the iconic arpeggio was the perfect inclusion to the hit rap single. The frontman for the 1980s band sued and won all of the track's royalties. You'd imagine that this would have created a lot of animosity between Sting and Diddy, but they eventually became unlikely friends. Number 22, Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On versus Ed Sheeran, Thinking Out Loud. Considering the scope of Marvin Gaye's contributions to music, it's not hard to imagine that many artists are constantly inspired by his output.
I've been really trying, baby.
Those in charge of his rights have been known to scrutinize high-profile singles that have any similarities with Gaye's catalog. In the case of Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud, some felt that it was too close to the classic hit Let's Get It On.
When your legs don't work like they used to before.
Potential lawsuits were drawn up, dismissed, and reworked over the years. The trial finally went forward in 2023, at which point Sheeran was cleared of any potential infringement. With both songs using a comparable chord structure, the final ruling bodes well for pop stars that have faced accusations of consciously or unconsciously stealing from others.
We found love right where we are.
Number 21, Spirit, Taurus versus Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. Arguably the most lauded rock composition ever, Stairway to Heaven is the epic of all epic songs in its respective genre.
And she's buying the stairway to heaven.
Led Zeppelin and fellow rocker Spirit were in close enough proximity that they would have been exposed to each other's music. The latter band had an instrumental called Taurus, which has a guitar part that's not unlike the beginning of Zeppelin's track. They sued for copyright infringement in 2014, entering into a multi-year war over the rightful authorship of Stairway. Robert Plant and Jimmy Page seemingly didn't have a memory of the plaintiff's music, and ultimately, the powers that be sided with the more famous musicians. Number 20, The Kinks, All Day and All of the Night versus The Doors, Hello, I Love You. Although The Doors guitarist Robbie Krieger denied that his band copied the chord-driven main riff of the 1964 Kinks track, the Kinks music publishers found that these two singles were just a bit too similar. Turns out, UK courts agreed. So a deal was eventually struck, entitling the Kinks to a large share of Hello I Love You's British royalties. The Doors' song credits remain unchanged, but in 2014, Kinks lead singer and main songwriter Ray Davies suggested to Rolling Stone that an out-of-court settlement had been reached.
Hello, I love you, let me jump
Number 19, Tom Petty, I Won't Back Down versus Sam Smith, Stay With Me. Traditionally, when songs popped up that sounded a bit Tom Petty, the late Heartbreakers frontman let it slide. But this time, things played out differently.
Will stand my ground, and I won't back down.
Although the band leader expressed no hard feelings and deemed the similarities between the chorus to his I Won't Back Down and Smith's Stay With Me to be, quote, a musical accident, his publishing company entered the fray all the same.
Won't you stay with me? 'Cause you're all I need.
Perhaps it was because, unlike American Girl and Mary Jane's Last Dance, the TP track in question had a co-writer, fellow Traveling Wilbury and ELO songwriter Jeff Lynne. In the end, Petty and Lynne ended up getting their due credit, along with 12.5% of the Stay With Me royalties. Number 18, Joe Satriani, If I Could Fly versus Coldplay, Viva La Vida. Take notes on this one. You're gonna need them.
It was the wicked and wild wind.
First up, Brooklyn-based indie alternative band Creaky Board suggested that Coldplay had ripped off their ironically titled The Songs I Didn't Write. However, the British rockers had recorded a demo of Viva prior to that song's first performance.
About when you heard the poem, that would have shook around our home.
Then, Joe Satriani stepped up, lawsuit in hand, claiming that Chris Martin and crew borrowed from his If I Could Fly. Things got even more complicated when Yusuf Islam, formerly Cat Stevens, joined in on the fun, pointing out that all of these songs sounded like his Foreigner suite. Satriani's case was later dismissed in 2009.
For some reason I can't explain. I know St. Peter will call my name.
Number 17, The New Seekers, I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing in Perfect Harmony versus Oasis Shaker Maker. Oasis has never tried to hide their reverence for the past when it comes to their own musical style. But this is one case where Noel Gallagher may have borrowed a bit too much. The song I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing in Perfect Harmony began its life as a Coca-Cola jingle, before being fleshed out and recorded by the New Seekers.
I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
And ultimately having its melody and some lyrics woven into the fabric of Oasis's Shaker Maker. Most sources claim that Gallagher was forced to change the offending I'd Like to Teach the World line, alter a few notes, and cough up $500,000. Upon losing the aforementioned lawsuit, Gallagher quipped, quote, "We drink Pepsi now." Number 16, Muddy Waters' You Need Love versus Led Zeppelin, Whole Lotta Love. By cranking the tempo and volume of the blues, Led Zepp helped pioneer hard rock and heavy metal. But sometimes they stuck just a bit too close to their roots. While it took them a long time to get caught, the rock icons were finally sued in 1985 for Whole Lotta Love's whole lot of similarities to the Willie Dixon-penned Muddy Waters classic You Need Love.
Baby, way down inside, woman, you need love.
Though things were eventually settled out of court, it obviously wasn't the only time the British rockers were accused of borrowing material. Number 15, The Rubenus' I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend versus Avril Lavigne, Girlfriend. When the Rubenus stepped up claiming Avril Lavigne had plagiarized them, Avril said, "Ruben who?" But aside from claiming she'd never heard of the band or their song, she and her team chose a risky defense. They said Girlfriend was actually closer to the Rolling Stones' Get Off of My Cloud. Or Mickey. But wait a minute, what about the Ramones song I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend? Had the Rubenus themselves plagiarized? Ultimately, a musicologist decided the Rubenus track and Avril's song were completely different based on science, and the case was settled out of court when Avril's manager decided it was cheaper than paying lawyers. Number 14, The Kinks' Picture Book versus The Other Garden Never Got the Chance versus Green Day, Warning. And now, how not to file a lawsuit. In 2001, Colin Mary, songwriter for an obscure English band called The Other Garden, Green Day, claiming that Warning was a copy of his song Never Got the Chance. The band's lawyer threatened to sue the punk rockers for as much as $100,000, despite the fact that Mary admitted both his and Green Day's songs had the same distinct riff as Picture Book by the Kinks. Needless to say, the lawsuit was eventually dropped. Number 13, Larrikin Music's Kookaburra versus Men at Work Down Under. Down Under, a backhanded anthem of all things Aussie and a monster hit in the early 1980s, became a source of legal trouble in the 2000s. Originally, the band's flautist, Greg Ham, borrowed a 2-bar motif from Kookaburra, an Australian children's song. Years went by without incident until the connection between the two tunes was mentioned on the game show Spicks and Specks in 2007. That's when the right holders to Kookaburra, Larrikin Music, came knocking.
Kookaburra is sitting in the old gum tree,
demanding 60% of Down Under's royalties dating back to 1981. In July 2010, they instead were granted 5%, backdated to 2002. Sadly, Ham passed away in 2012 at the age of 58, and bandmate Colin Hay cites stress from the court case as a contributing factor.
You know, the fact of the matter is that it went unrecognized for 27 years because it was unconscious, it was innocuous, it was naive.
Number 12, Huey Lewis in the News' I Want a New Drug versus Ray Parker Jr., Ghostbusters. Who you gonna call? A lawyer if you're Huey Lewis.
I want a new drug, one I won't spill.
Lewis was actually asked to write a theme for Ghostbusters, but passed on it to write music for Back to the Future. So, when Ray Parker Jr.'s theme for the supernatural comedy came out sounding suspiciously like Huey's I Want a New Drug, Lewis cited plagiarism.
There's something strange in your neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters!
It was settled out of court almost a decade later, and when the News frontman spilled the beans on the confidential settlement on TV, Ray Parker Jr. turned the tables and sued Lewis right back in 2001. Number 11, Sleigh Bells, Infinity Guitars versus Demi Lovato, Stars. Typically, only lyrics and melody are considered copyrightable. For New York band Sleigh Bells, Demi Lovato's Stars sounded, quote, virtually identical to their Infinity Guitars, with a little bit of riot rhythm mixed in. But it was chiefly the hand claps and bass drum counter rhythm that were cited. It was on this basis that the duo laid a case against Lovato, UMG Recordings, and producers and co-writers Carl Falk and Rami Yacoub. The problem was, Falk and Yacoub claimed no samples were used in the song, and that Demi only wrote one line. The matter was settled in April 2017, and Lovato's team maintained there was no deliberate infringement. Number 10, Creedence Clearwater Revival Run Through the Jungle versus John Fogerty, The Old Man Down the Road. In a very odd move, John Fogerty was sued for sounding like himself.
You got the voices speaking riddle. You got the eyes black as coal.
Fogerty was once the lead vocalist, lead guitarist, and primary songwriter of Creedence Clearwater Revival. But after the band broke up, he relinquished his rights to CCR songs to get out of contractual commitments. So, when Fogerty released the solo track The Old Man Down the Road, Fantasy Records, owner of CCR's song catalog and his label during his Creedence days, claimed it ripped off Run Through the Jungle.
Better run through the jungle. Better run through the jungle.
The swamp rocker beat the case by bringing a guitar to the stand and demonstrating that the two songs were, in fact, quite different, and that you can't actually plagiarize yourself. Well played, Fogerty.
My songs tend to sound like my songs, right?
Number 9, Gordon Jenkins' Crescent City Blues versus Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues. In the annals of song plagiarism, there have been cases of subconscious plagiarism, outright plagiarism, uncleared samples, and downright sneakiness. This is a case of self-amusement gone awry. While stationed in West Germany in 1953, Johnny Cash wrote new lyrics to the melody of Crescent City Blues, inspired by the film Inside the Walls of Folsom Prison.
When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son.
Flash forward a few years, and Cash is now a recording artist short on material. So he offered up his Folsom Prison Blues to producer Sam Phillips, who told Cash not to worry about the legalities.
Oh, I had it coming. I know I can't be free.
15 years later, the Men in Black would pay out $75,000 in retribution. Number 8. The Rolling Stones' The Last Time versus The Verve, Bittersweet Symphony. This 90s Britpop anthem was at the center of a lengthy and contentious plagiarism case. The Verve did obtain the rights to sample part of the Andrew Oldham orchestral version of the classic Stones song. The issue was how much the band used, and according to former Stones manager and rights holder of the song, Alan Klein, it was way too much. So, 100% of the royalties went to Klein, and songwriting credit went to Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. That's when Oldham himself demanded recompense for the specific version of the song they had used. Though it took many years, this story does have a relatively happy ending, with the Stones backing off by 2019 and granting all future royalties to Verve lead singer Richard Ashcroft. Number 7. Chuck Berry, You Can't Catch Me versus the Beatles come together.
Yeah, come on, flat top. He was moving up with me.
The story starts simply enough. John Lennon used an old Chuck Berry song as a starting point for a new song. But this similarity triggered legal issues with Berry's publisher, the controversial Morris Levy.
Here come old flat top, here come grooving up slowly.
As repayment, Lennon agreed to record 3 songs owned by Levy, and attempted to do so during his rock and roll album sessions, until producer Phil Spector stole the tapes and went into hiding. When the tapes were recovered, Lennon tried reassuring Levy that he was upholding his end of the deal by sharing a rough mix of his progress, which Levy released himself and chased with a $42 million breach of contract lawsuit. Lennon, EMI, and Capitol Records countersued, with Levy being awarded a nominal $6,795 while having to pay out somewhere in the ballpark of $150,000. Number 6. The Chiffons' He's So Fine versus George Harrison, My Sweet Lord. Soon after releasing his solo hit, the first #1 single by a former Beatle, George Harrison found himself at the center of a copyright infringement lawsuit filed by Bright Tunes. Harrison was accused of plagiarizing the Ronnie Mac penned song He's So Fine. The courts ruled that he had subconsciously copied the Chiffon smash and would owe nearly $1.6 million in damages.
He's a soft-spoken guy. Also seems kind of shy.
But the story doesn't end there. After Harrison fired his manager, the previously mentioned Alan Klein, during the trial, Klein seized the opportunity to buy the copyright to He's So Fine. The courts ultimately decided that Harrison would only have to pay Klein's Abco Industries $587,000, and he ended up with the song's rights. Number 5. The Hollies' The Air That I Breathe versus Radiohead, Creep. This case is so open and shut it's almost dull.
But I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo.
While writing Creep, Ed O'Brien pointed out to Tom York that the song's bridge had the same chords as The Air That I Breathe. So York decided to grab the song's melody too.
These came upon me and did me.
That song's authors, Albert Hammond and Mike Hazelwood, then sued, but were impressed by the band's honesty and settled for credits and a cut of the Creep royalties. It's a sharp contrast to 2018, when Lana Del Rey would allege that Radiohead's team noticed passing similarities to Creep in her song Get Free, and demanded 100% of her royalties.
Gone is the burden of the crowded way of being.
Number 4. Marvin Gay, Gotta Give It Up versus Robin Thicke featuring T.I. and Pharrell Williams, Blurred Lines.
Let's welcome one of the great talents in the history of popular music. Let's get your hands together, gang, for Mr. Marvin Gay.
In one of many controversies that plagued this summer hit, Robin Thicke actually sued Marvin Gaye's family for alleging the singer had plagiarized the late soul artist. While Thicke admitted he was inspired by Gotta Give It Up, he and co-writer Pharrell Williams contended that despite their similar vibe, they were essentially not the same, citing different chords, keys, and more. Bridgeport Music also became involved due to claims that Blurred Lines sampled Funkadelic's Sexy Ways. Despite lots of support from music industry heavyweights who did not believe you could copyright a feeling, in 2018, a judge ordered Thicke and Williams to pay nearly $5 million to Marvin Gaye's estate.
No more pretending, 'cause now you're winning.
Number 3. Chuck Berry, Sweet Little 16 versus the Beach Boys, Surfin' USA.
Surfing USA.
Here's an instance where the artist openly and knowingly used the tune to an existing song for his new composition. Brian Wilson wanted to write a song about surfing and felt Chuck Berry's Sweet Little 16 was the perfect setting for his surf-themed lyrics. However, he neglected to credit Berry upon its recording and release. Although Surfin' USA was meant to be viewed as a tribute, Berry's publishing company was unimpressed and forced Wilson's manager to surrender copyright to the rock and roll pioneer's publisher, Arc Music.
Sweet little 16, she's got the grown-up blues.
Number 2. Multiple Artists versus Mark Ronson, Uptown Funk.
Don't believe me, just watch.
We guess it takes a village to write a hit song, too. Before the monster hit that is Uptown Funk was even released, Ronson and company offered some credit to Trinidad James.
Don't believe me, just watch.
After it was released, the Gap Band came knocking, claiming similarities to their Oops Upside Your Head, followed by the Sequence, Collage, and finally Zap in September of 2017. Additionally, Serbian artist Victoria has alleged that the song lifts elements from one of her songs. By 2018, 17% of the track's royalties were transferred to the Gap Band, while the credits have ballooned from Ronson, Bruno Mars, Jeff Basker, and Philip Lawrence to include 6 additional songwriters from their respective groups. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Queen and David Bowie Under Pressure versus Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby. It takes about 7 notes to recognize Ice Ice Baby for what it is. While the signature bass line amounts to a sample, Vanilla Ice never sought permission to use it, and instead said his tinkering with the riff and adding 1 note made it original. But in the face of legal action, the rapper caved and granted David Bowie, as well as all 4 members of Queen, due credit and royalties. In 2013, Ice claimed to have bought Under Pressure outright. However, the song's publishing info shows that it's co-owned by companies representing Queen, Bowie, and EMI Music, making Ice's claim a bit dubious. Have any of your favorite songs ever been ripped off? Let us know in the comments below. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.